Jake Morrison checked the navigation screen one more time as his cargo ship drifted through the outer edge of the Kepler system. The mining operation had gone smoothly, and their hold was full of rare metals that would fetch a good price back on Earth. His crew of 12 had worked hard for the past 3 months, and they deserved the bonus waiting for them at home. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jake and sat down at her station. As his second in command, she had been with him for 5 years and knew his habits better than anyone. "The crew is getting restless," she said, sipping her coffee. "Pete keeps asking when we can jump back to Earth." Jake smiled. Pete Collins was their chief engineer, a good man who missed his wife and 2 kids back home. "Tell him we'll start the jump sequence in 2 hours. I want to run one final system check first." Lisa nodded and was about to reply when the ship's alarms suddenly screamed to life. Red lights flashed across every panel on the bridge. Jake dropped his coffee and rushed to the main console. "What the hell is happening?" Lisa shouted over the noise. Jake's fingers flew across the controls, but nothing made sense. The sensors showed something massive approaching, but it was bigger than anything he had ever seen. The object was at least 10 times the size of their ship and moving impossibly fast. "All hands to emergency stations," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill." The bridge door opened and Pete ran in, his face pale with worry. "Captain, the engines just shut down on their own. I can't get them back online." Before Jake could respond, the entire ship shuddered violently. Through the main viewing screen, they watched as a shadow fell across their vessel. The object above them was so large it blocked out the stars. Its surface was smooth and dark, with strange blue lights running along its edges in patterns that hurt to look at. "Try to send a distress signal," Jake ordered Lisa, but she was already shaking her head. "Nothing's working. Communications are dead. Even the backup systems won't respond." The ship shuddered again, and Jake realized they were being pulled upward by some kind of tractor beam. He had heard stories of such technology, but the Earth Alliance had never developed anything like it. "Captain," Pete whispered, pointing at the viewing screen. "Look at that." A section of the alien vessel was opening like a flower. Inside, Jake could see a massive hangar bay filled with the same blue light. Their ship was being drawn directly toward it. "Everyone stay calm," Jake said, though his own heart was racing. "We don't know what they want yet." The process took nearly an hour. Jake's ship was pulled inside the alien vessel and secured by mechanical arms that moved with perfect precision. The hangar bay was enormous, easily capable of holding 100 ships their size. The air shimmered around them as some kind of atmosphere field activated. "Are we breathing their air now?" Lisa asked nervously. Jake checked the environmental readings. "No, they're maintaining our ship's atmosphere. They know we need oxygen." This fact worried him more than anything else. Whoever these beings were, they had studied humans enough to know their basic needs. This was not a random encounter. A soft humming sound filled the ship, and Jake felt his body become heavy. His arms and legs refused to move, and he realized some kind of paralysis field was affecting them. Lisa and Pete were experiencing the same thing, their eyes wide with fear but unable to speak or move. The ship's main door opened with a soft hiss. Jake watched helplessly as 3 figures entered his vessel. They were tall, at least 7 feet in height, with pale skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Their features were almost human but too perfect, too symmetrical. Their eyes were large and completely black, reflecting the ship's lights like mirrors. The figure in the center wore what appeared to be a flowing robe, made of the same material as their ship. Strange symbols covered the fabric, shifting and changing, as Jake watched. When she spoke, her voice was clear and musical, speaking perfect English without any accent. "Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Frontier," she said, looking directly at him. "I am Princess Zerahai of the Veilthrin Empire. You and your crew are under our protection. Jake wanted to demand answers, to ask how she knew his name, but the paralysis field made speech impossible. He could only listen as she continued. We have been observing your species for many decades. Your planet, your culture, your genetic structure. We mean you no harm, but we require your assistance in a matter of great importance. The princess moved closer to Jake, her black eyes studying his face. Your crew will not be harmed. They will be placed in stasis for their own comfort during our journey. You, however, must come with us. The future of both our species may depend on your cooperation. She gestured to her companions, who moved with the same fluid grace toward the other crew members. Jake watched in horror as they attached small devices to Lisa and Pete. Within seconds, both of his friends fell into a deep sleep. Where are you taking me? Jake managed to say, as the paralysis field around his mouth loosened slightly. Princess Zerahai tilted her head, and for a moment, something that might have been sadness crossed her perfect features. To our homeworld, Captain Morrison. To face a choice that no being should ever have to make. The princess placed a similar device on Jake's forehead. As consciousness faded, he heard her whisper something in her own language, even without understanding the words. He could hear the desperation in her voice. The last thing Jake saw before the darkness took him was the princess standing alone in his ship's doorway, her glowing form seeming to carry the weight of entire worlds on her shoulders. Whatever these aliens wanted from him, he had the feeling that refusing would doom more than just himself and his crew. Jake woke up in a room that looked like something from a dream. The walls were made of a material that seemed to be part crystal and part metal, glowing softly with warm light. The bed he lay on was more comfortable than anything he had ever experienced, adjusting perfectly to his body without any visible controls. He sat up slowly, his head still foggy from whatever they had used to put him to sleep. The room was large, with a curved ceiling that showed what appeared to be stars moving past at incredible speed. They were traveling through hyperspace, something humans had only theorized about. A door opened in the wall, though Jake had not seen any seam or handle there before. Princess Zerahai entered, followed by another Veilthrin who wore simpler clothing. This one carried what looked like medical equipment. You are awake, the princess said. Good. Dr. Veltar was concerned about the effects of stasis on human physiology. The doctor approached Jake and began scanning him with a device that hummed softly. Jake noticed that Dr. Veltar's hands had 6 fingers instead of 5, and his skin had a slight blue tint in the light. I am fine, Jake said, pushing the doctor's device away. Where is my crew? You promised they wouldn't be harmed. Princess Zerahai gestured to a section of the wall, which suddenly became transparent. Through it, Jake could see into another room where his crew members floated in what appeared to be stasis chambers filled with glowing liquid. They are in perfect health, Dr. Veltar said in accented English. The stasis process will preserve them exactly as they are until we choose to wake them. They are experiencing pleasant dreams and feel no discomfort. Jake studied the doctor's face, looking for signs of deception, but found none. The alien seemed genuinely concerned about human welfare. How long have we been traveling? Jake asked. 3 of your days, the princess replied. We will reach Ethros Prime in 2 more. During this time, I must explain why you are here and what we ask of you. She moved to another wall, which changed to show images as she spoke. Jake saw star maps covering hundreds of solar systems, all connected by glowing lines that he assumed were trade routes or communication networks. This is the Veilthrin Empire, Princess Zerahai said. For over 10,000 years, my people have spread across this section of the galaxy. We are explorers, scientists, artists. We have never conquered through war, only through invitation and mutual benefit. The images changed to show beautiful cities with crystal spires reaching toward alien skies. Jake saw Veilthran citizens walking through parks filled with plants that seemed to sing as the wind touched them. Children played games that involved manipulating light with their hands. Your civilization is beautiful, Jake admitted. But this doesn't explain why you kidnapped me and my crew. The princess's expression darkened, and the images on the wall changed again. Now Jake saw the same cities, but many of the buildings were dark and empty. The parks were overgrown, and very few people walked the streets. This is our empire today, she said quietly. 500 years ago, a genetic plague began affecting our people. At first, it only caused minor health problems. Then it began affecting our ability to reproduce. Dr. Veltar stepped forward and activated another device. The air in front of Jake filled with complex genetic charts and medical data. Even without understanding the science, Jake could see that something was terribly wrong. The plague attacks. The genetic sequences responsible for fertility, the doctor explained. Each generation has fewer children than the last. In the past century, our population has dropped by 90%. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You're going extinct? Princess Zerahai nodded. In less than 200 years, there will be no more Veilthran children born. My people, our culture, our knowledge, everything will be lost forever. The wall display changed again, showing Jake's own genetic code alongside Veilthran samples. Areas of compatibility were highlighted in green, and there were far more green sections than Jake had expected. Human DNA contains sequences that we lost long ago, Dr. Veltar said. Your species evolved under different pressures than ours. You retained genetic flexibility that we sacrificed for other advantages. Jake stared at the data, beginning to understand why he was here. You think human genes can cure your plague? Not cure it, the princess corrected, but they can allow us to continue. Hybrid offspring would carry the best of both species out, advanced neural capacity and your genetic resilience. She paused, and Jake could see the pain in her dark eyes. But the process cannot be forced. Our research shows that genetic compatibility requires psychological acceptance from both parents. Unwilling participation produces offspring that carry the same genetic weaknesses as pure Veilthran children. Jake stood up from the bed, pacing to the transparent wall, where he could see his sleeping crew. So you need me to volunteer to help save your species? Yes, Princess Zerahai said simply. And I know how impossible that request must seem. Dr. Veltar activated another display, this one showing Earth from space. Jake's home planet looked small and vulnerable in the vast darkness. We have technology that could benefit your people greatly, the doctor said. Clean energy that could power your entire planet without pollution. Medical advances that could eliminate most diseases. Faster than light travel that would let humans explore the galaxy. Jake turned to face them both. And in exchange, I give up my life to become a breeding partner for your royal family. The princess flinched at his harsh words, but she did not deny them. The process would require several years on our homeworld. You would be treated with the highest honor, given access to all our knowledge and culture. But yes, you would need to remain with us. She moved closer to Jake, and he could see that her perfect features hid deep exhaustion and worry. I know this is an impossible choice. I know we have no right to ask this of you. But I am watching my people die, one by one, and I will try anything to save them. Jake looked out at the stars rushing past, and thought about his crew, his life on Earth, and the impossible decision he was being asked to make. Somewhere in the distance, an entire civilization was dying, and somehow he had become their only hope. What happens if I refuse? He asked. Princess Zerahai was quiet for a long moment. Your crew will be returned to Earth safely, with all their memories of this encounter removed. You will go back to your normal lives, and in 200 years, the Veilthran Empire will become nothing but empty cities and forgotten dreams. The weight of entire worlds seemed to press down on Jake's shoulders as the alien ship continued its journey toward a dying civilization that now depended on his choice. The sight of Ethros Prime took Jake's breath away as their ship descended through the atmosphere. He pressed his face against the viewing port and stared at the most beautiful world he had ever seen. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, their surfaces covered with geometric patterns that glowed softly in the alien sunlight. The planet's surface was covered with crystal cities that stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. Tall spires twisted up toward the sky like frozen music, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of solidified light. Gardens filled with plants in colors that had no names on Earth grew between the buildings, their leaves catching the wind and creating sounds like distant singing. But as the ship flew lower, Jake began to notice the emptiness. Many of the crystal towers were dark, their lights extinguished. The bridges between buildings showed signs of disrepair, and the gardens were overgrown with wild plants that had taken over the carefully planned landscapes. It was not always like this, Princess Zarahai said, standing beside Jake at the viewing port. When I was a child, these cities hummed with life. Every tower was filled with families, every garden maintained by those who loved beauty. Dr. Veltar joined them, pointing to a massive complex in the center of the nearest city. The Palace of Eternal Vigil, he said. Home to the royal family for 8,000 years. Now it houses fewer than 1,000 souls. Their ship landed on a platform that extended from one of the palace's highest towers. As they stepped out, Jake was surprised to find that he could breathe the alien air without difficulty. It tasted slightly sweet and seemed to energize his body in ways Earth's atmosphere never had. Our atmosphere is compatible with human physiology, Princess Zarahai explained. It is one of the reasons we believe our species are meant to help each other. A small group of Veilthran citizens waited for them on the landing platform. Jake was shocked to see how few there were, and how young they looked, despite their obvious age. Each one stared at him with obvious curiosity and what might have been hope. They have never seen a human before, Dr. Veltar said quietly. To them, you represent possibilities they thought were lost forever. Princess Zarahai led Jake through corridors that seemed to be carved from single pieces of crystal. The walls showed holographic displays of Veilthran history, great explorations to distant stars, peaceful contacts with dozens of alien species, and scientific discoveries that had advanced their civilization beyond anything humans had achieved. They stopped at a vast hall filled with small pods arranged in neat rows. Each pod glowed softly from within, and Jake could see tiny figures sleeping inside them. The Hall of Future Dreams, the princess said sadly. Here we keep the last children of our people in stasis, waiting for a cure that may never come. Jake approached one of the pods and looked down at a child who could not have been more than 5 years old. The child's features were perfect, like a small version of the adults he had met, but there was something fragile about the way she slept. She is my cousin's daughter, Princess Zarahai said. The plague took her parents when she was 3. We placed her in stasis to prevent the genetic damage from getting worse, but she has been sleeping for 20 years now. Jake moved from pod to pod, looking at dozens of children who should have been playing in the palace gardens, but instead slept in eternal dreams. How many are there? 312, Dr. Veltar answered. The last generation of pure Veilthran children. If our experiment with human genetics fails, they will be the final children our species ever produces. They left the hall and continued deeper into the palace. Jake was amazed by the technology around him, walls that changed color and texture at a thought, fountains that flowed upward instead of down, and art that moved and shifted to reflect the emotions of those who looked at it. But everywhere he looked, Jake saw signs of decline. Sections of the palace were sealed off, their crystal walls dim and lifeless. Gardens that had once been carefully maintained were now wild and overgrown. The few Veilthran citizens they passed moved slowly, as if carrying invisible weights. Finally, they reached the throne room, a vast chamber with a ceiling that showed the real sky above the palace. In the center sat an elderly veiled throne man on a throne made of what appeared to be crystallized starlight. Even from across the room, Jake could see that he was dying. Emperor Theronval, Princess Zerahai, announced formally, "I present Captain Jake Morrison of Earth." The Emperor stood slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. Up close, Jake could see the genetic plague's effects. The Emperor's perfect features were marred by dark lines under his skin, and his breathing was labored. "Captain Morrison," the Emperor said in a voice that carried the weight of ages, "I apologize for the manner in which you were brought here. Desperation makes us forget our manners." Jake found himself bowing slightly, though he was not sure why. There was something about the Emperor that commanded respect without demanding it. "Your Majesty," Jake replied, "I understand you're facing a terrible situation." Emperor gestured for Jake to sit in a chair that formed itself from the crystal floor. "Terrible is too small a word. I am watching the death of everything my ancestors built. Every day, more of my people succumb to the plague. Every day, our great cities grow quieter." The Emperor activated a control, and the air around them filled with images of the Veilthran Empire at its height. Jake saw fleets of crystal ships exploring new worlds, peaceful meetings with dozens of alien species, and scientific academies, where the greatest minds in the galaxy came to learn. "We have brought peace to over 400 worlds," the Emperor continued. "We have shared our knowledge freely with any species that asked. We have never conquered, never enslaved, never destroyed for the sake of power." The images changed to show the present empty ships drifting in space, abandoned colonies slowly being reclaimed by nature, and the few remaining Veilthran outposts desperately trying to maintain contact with a dying homeworld. "Now all of that will be lost," Emperor Theronvel said, "unless a human from a small blue planet chooses to help us survive." Jake looked around the throne room, seeing the weight of history in every crystal formation and holographic display. This was not just about saving lives, it was about preserving a civilization that had brought peace and knowledge to hundreds of worlds. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Jake asked. Princess Zerahai stepped forward. "To remain here on Ethros Prime and allow our medical teams to use your genetic material to create hybrid offspring. The process would take several years, and you would need to form genuine emotional bonds with selected partners to ensure psychological compatibility." Dr. Veltar added, "You would be treated as royalty yourself, given access to all our technology and knowledge. Your life would be extended far beyond normal human limits, and you would watch the birth of a new species that combines the best of both our peoples." Jake stood and walked to the throne room's main window. Below him stretched the Crystal City, beautiful but dying. In the distance, he could see other cities, their lights growing dimmer each day as their populations dwindled. "And if I refuse?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Emperor Theronvel's voice was barely a whisper. "Then in 200 years, when the last Veilthran child dies, the galaxy will be a darker place. 400 worlds will lose their protectors, and knowledge that took 10,000 years to gather will be forgotten forever." Jake stared out at the dying empire and felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on his shoulders. Somewhere above them, his crew slept peacefully, unaware that their captain was being asked to sacrifice his entire life to save an alien species that most humans did not even know existed. Jake spent the next 3 days exploring the palace and the city beyond its walls. Princess Zerahai had given him complete freedom to go wherever he wished, accompanied only by Dr. Veltar, who served as both guide and translator when they encountered other Veilthran citizens. The experience was overwhelming. Jake walked through museums that contained the history of hundreds of worlds, libraries where knowledge was stored as crystalline formations that projected information directly into his mind, and art galleries where sculptures moved and changed, based on the viewer's emotions. But everywhere he went, the signs of decline were obvious. Entire sections of the city were abandoned, their crystal structures slowly losing their glow as the energy systems that powered them were shut down to conserve resources. The few Veilthran citizens he met moved with the slow deliberation of a people who knew their time was running out. On the third evening, Dr. Veltar brought Jake to a private laboratory deep within the palace. The room was filled with equipment that hummed and glowed with alien technology, and the walls were covered with genetic charts and medical data that would have taken Earth's scientists centuries to understand. "I want to show you something," Dr. Veltar said, activating a large display screen. "The complete genetic analysis of what your offspring would be like." The screen filled with complex diagrams showing DNA strands that combined human and Veilthran characteristics. Jake could see immediately that the hybrid children would be remarkable, possessing the Veilthran's advanced mental capabilities while retaining humanity's genetic resilience and adaptability. They would be stronger than either parent species, Dr. Veltar explained. Immune to the genetic plague that is killing us, but also possessing mental abilities that humans have not yet developed. They would live for thousands of years and be capable of learning and growing in ways that neither of our species can achieve alone. Jake studied the projections carefully. They would be a new species entirely. Yes, the doctor agreed. Not human, not Veilthran, but something new and wonderful. They would inherit the best qualities of both peoples and could carry our combined knowledge to the stars. The laboratory door opened, and Princess Zerahai entered, carrying a small crystal device. She looked tired, and Jake noticed that the dark lines under her skin were more pronounced than they had been when he first met her. "The plague is affecting you too," Jake observed. She nodded sadly. "I am the last of the royal bloodline. If I die without producing an heir, the Empire will fall into chaos even before the final extinction." Princess Zerahai activated the crystal device, and the air around them filled with music unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It was complex and beautiful, with harmonies that seemed to reach directly into his soul and stir emotions he could not name. "This is the song of memory," she said softly. "Every Veilthran child learns it as they grow up. It contains the history of our people, our values, our dreams for the future." As the music played, Jake began to see images in his mind, not his own memories, but those of the Veilthran people. He saw their first steps into space, their meetings with other alien species, their decisions to share knowledge rather than conquer, and their joy as they built a civilization based on peace and understanding. "If we die," Princess Zerahai said, "this song dies with us. All of our music, our art, our philosophy, everything that makes us who we are, will be lost forever." The music ended, and Jake found himself wiping away tears he had not realized were falling. The emotional weight of the Veilthran's impending extinction hit him harder than any logical argument could have. "I've been thinking about your offer," Jake said quietly, "about the technology you promised to share with Earth." Dr. Veltar nodded eagerly. "Clean energy, advanced medicine, faster than light travel. We would give humanity everything we have learned in 10,000 years of exploration." Jake walked to the laboratory's window and looked out at the dying city. "My people are still fighting wars over oil and water. We're poisoning our own planet and arguing about whether the damage is real. The technology you're offering could save us from destroying ourselves." Princess Zerahai joined him at the window. "That is part of why we chose you, Jake Morrison. Our studies of Earth showed us a species with great potential, but also great dangers. You need guidance to avoid the mistakes that other civilizations have made." She paused, her dark eyes reflecting the lights of the city below. "But we also chose you because our analysis showed that you were the type of person who would make this choice for the right reasons, not for personal gain, but because it is the right thing to do." Jake turned to face her, seeing not the alien princess who had kidnapped him, but a desperate leader trying to save her people. You studied me personally. For 3 years, she admitted. We monitored your ship's missions, your decisions under pressure, your treatment of your crew. We watched how you handled moral dilemmas and how you put others' welfare ahead of your own. Dr. Velter activated another display, showing Jake's complete psychological profile. It was embarrassing to see his entire personality reduced to charts and graphs, but also strangely reassuring to know that they had not chosen him randomly. You have the genetic markers we need, the doctor said. But more importantly, you have the moral character to be a good father to children who will carry the future of 2 species. Jake spent the rest of the evening walking through the palace gardens with Princess Zerahai. She showed him plants that sang in harmony with the wind, flowers that changed color based on the emotions of those who touched them, and trees that stored memories in their crystalline leaves. This is what we will lose, she said, as they sat beside a fountain that flowed upward toward the stars. Not just our lives, but our entire way of seeing the universe. Jake watched the water dance in impossible patterns and thought about his crew sleeping peacefully in their stasis chambers. He thought about Earth, with all its beauty and problems. He thought about the hybrid children who would never exist if he refused to help. I need to record a message for my crew, Jake said. Finally, if I agree to this, they deserve to know why. Princess Zerahai's eyes widened with hope, but she kept her voice carefully neutral. Dr. Veltar can provide you with recording equipment. Jake stood and looked up at the 3 moons hanging in the alien sky. I also want guarantees. If I do this, the Veilthran Empire makes formal contact with Earth. You share your technology freely, not as payment for my sacrifice, but as partners. You help my people learn to explore the galaxy responsibly. Agreed, Princess Zerahai said immediately. We had hoped for such a partnership, even before our current crisis. Jake took a deep breath and made the decision that would change 2 civilizations forever. Then I'll do it. I'll help you save your people. The princess closed her eyes and whispered something in her own language that sounded like a prayer of gratitude. When she opened them again, Jake saw tears of relief flowing down her perfect features. You are giving us more than just genetic material, she said softly. You are giving us hope. You are proving that intelligent species can work together for the greater good. As they walked back toward the palace, Jake felt the weight of his choice settling over him like a cloak. He was giving up his old life, but he was also becoming part of something larger than himself, bridge between 2 species, and the father of a new form of life that would carry the best of both worlds to the stars. The medical facility where the genetic integration would take place was unlike anything Jake had ever imagined. Located in the heart of the palace, it combined Veilthran crystal technology with equipment specifically designed for human physiology. Dr. Veltar had worked for months to create a process that would be safe for both species. Jake stood in the preparation chamber, wearing robes made of the same flowing material as Princess Zerahai's formal clothing. Through the transparent walls, he could see his crew's stasis chambers being prepared for transport back to Earth. True to her word, the princess was ensuring their safe return before the procedure began. Are you certain about this? Dr. Velta asked one final time as he checked the monitoring equipment. Once we begin, the genetic changes in your body will be irreversible. Jake nodded firmly. I'm certain, but I want to speak to my crew one more time before they leave. The doctor activated the revival sequence for the stasis chambers. One by one, Jake's crew members awakened, their eyes confused as they took in their surroundings. Lisa Carter was the first to speak, her voice hoarse from the long sleep. Jake, where are we? What happened to the ship? Jake had prepared for this moment, but it was still difficult to find the right words. We encountered an alien species called the Veilthran. They need our help, and I've agreed to stay here to provide it. Pete Collins sat up in his chamber, looking around at the crystal walls and glowing technology. This is incredible. They're really aliens. Yes, Jake said simply. And they're dying. Their entire civilization is facing extinction, and human genetic material might be able to save them. Lisa's training as his second-in-command kicked in, and she studied Jake's face carefully. You're staying here permanently, aren't you? Jake met her eyes and nodded. They're going to send you all back to Earth with proof of what happened here. The Veilthrin want to establish peaceful contact with humanity and share their technology with us. The rest of the crew gathered around as Jake explained the situation. He told them about the genetic plague, the dying empire, and the choice he had made. Some were shocked, others were amazed by the alien technology, but all of them understood why he had decided to help. You're doing the right thing, Pete said finally. Your kids are going to be remarkable. Jake smiled at his friend's simple acceptance. Take care of each other on the trip home, and tell Earth that humanity has allies among the stars now. After emotional farewells, Jake watched through the facility's viewing ports as his crew was taken to their ship. The Frontier had been fully repaired and upgraded with Veilthrin technology that would make the journey back to Earth safer and faster than any human vessel had ever traveled. Princess Sarahai joined Jake at the viewing port as the ship departed. Dr. Amy Rodriguez from your planet's leading genetics laboratory is arriving tomorrow, she said. We invited her to oversee the medical procedures and ensure your safety throughout the process. Jake was surprised. You contacted Earth already? We have been in communication with your planet's leaders for several days, the princess admitted. They are excited about the possibility of formal contact and have agreed to the technology exchange we discussed. The genetic integration process began the following week. Dr. Rodriguez, a brilliant woman in her 40s, worked alongside Dr. Veltar to monitor every aspect of Jake's treatment. The procedures were complex, but not painful, involving a series of treatments that gradually adapted his genetic structure to be compatible with Veilthrin physiology. This is incredible science, Dr. Rodriguez told Jake during one of their sessions. They're not just mixing genetic material, they're creating an entirely new evolutionary pathway. Your children will be able to survive in environments that would kill either pure humans or pure Veilthrin. As the months passed, Jake found himself forming genuine bonds with the Veilthrin people. Princess Zarahai spent hours teaching him their language, their customs, and their philosophy. He learned that their culture valued knowledge, beauty, and harmony above all else, and that they had spent thousands of years trying to bring peace to their section of the galaxy. The first hybrid child was born 11 months after the process began. Jake held his daughter in his arms and marveled at her perfect features. She had his brown eyes but the princess's luminous skin, and when she looked at him, he could sense an intelligence far beyond what any human or Veilthrin child possessed at birth. She is beautiful, Princess Sarahai whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. She carries both our people's futures within her. The news of the successful birth spread throughout the empire, like wildfire. For the first time in centuries, Veilthrin citizens had reason to hope. Ships that had been drifting aimlessly through space turned back toward home. Colonies that had been preparing for abandonment began making plans for the future. Within 3 years, Jake had become the father of 12 hybrid children, each one unique, but all possessing the remarkable combination of human adaptability and Veilthrin mental abilities. The children learned to speak both languages simultaneously, could manipulate the crystal technology with their thoughts, and showed an understanding of complex scientific concepts that amazed their teachers. As Jake watched his oldest daughter, Maya, playing with other hybrid children in the palace gardens, he received a communication from Earth. The message was from Lisa Carter, now serving as humanity's ambassador to the Veilthrin Empire. Jake, her voice said through the crystal communication device, I wanted you to know that Earth has established its first off-world colony using Veilthrin technology. We're calling it New Hope, and it's dedicated to the peaceful exploration of the galaxy. The message continued with updates about humanity's rapid advancement. Clean energy had eliminated pollution on Earth. Diseases that had plagued mankind for millennia were being cured with Velthran medical technology. Humanity was taking its first steps toward becoming a truly spacefaring species. Most importantly, Lisa's message concluded, "Your story has inspired a new generation of explorers and diplomats. Children on Earth learn about the captain who sacrificed his freedom to save an alien species and forge an alliance between worlds." Jake smiled as he listened to the message. Through the garden's crystal pathways, he could see dozens of hybrid children playing together, their laughter echoing through halls that had been silent for too long. These children would grow up to be bridges between species, carrying the knowledge and wisdom of both civilizations to the stars. Princess Zirahai, now his partner in both parenting and governing, approached with their newest child in her arms. "The council has made a decision," she said, with excitement in her voice. "They want to establish the Morrison Protocol." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "A set of ethical guidelines for any future genetic partnerships between species," she explained. "Your willingness to help us, and the way you insisted on protecting both your people and ours, will become the standard for how civilizations should work together." That evening, as Jake stood on the palace balcony, looking up at stars that no longer seemed distant and cold, he thought about the choice he had made. He missed his old life sometimes, missed the simplicity of cargo runs and the familiar comfort of Earth's sky. But watching his children grow and seeing two civilizations learning from each other, he knew he had made the right decision. The hybrid children were already showing signs of abilities that neither parent species possessed. They could survive in the vacuum of space for short periods, communicate telepathically across vast distances, and understand scientific principles that had taken their ancestors millennia to discover. They were truly a new form of life, one that would carry the best qualities of both species to distant worlds. As the 3 moons of Ethros Prime rose over the Crystal City, Jake heard the sound of children's laughter drifting up from the gardens. Below, the Velthran Empire would survive. Humanity had gained powerful allies among the stars, and somewhere in the galaxy, new worlds were waiting to be explored by beings who understood that cooperation was stronger than conquest. The future belonged to his children, and it was going to be remarkable.